Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. I'm your host, Toku, from It's Toku TV on Twitch. It has been a long while, and Clan Collection 5 and 6 have already been out for quite some time, but I figured this is going to be a mainstay of the channel, so I've taken some time out of my failing job search to give you, the viewers, what you want. My based, red-pilled, and Replica takes on the new cards and supports for Clan Collections 5 and 6. Once again, we need to preface the video as well as the rest of the series by letting you know that these lists are made at face value using my skills of card evaluation. They will need playtesting to fine-tune, but I hope they will serve as a good reference point for filthy net deckers to piggyback off of. Welcome back to Clan Collection Cores. Okay, Murakumo has had many attempts at good support in Clan Collection, and their best support has been in Clan Selection way back then with the Ryouigi package. So good even that it's been reprinted this many times. Let's see if Ryogi's two big Ryogis is what was needed to bring Murakumo's back to relevance. Leading us off is the Shikigami Master Ryogi herself. Once per turn, you can counterblast 1 and superior call a Stealth Fiend from top 5. But if the opponent is grade 3 or greater, call 2 instead. Also, when a Rearguard is placed by ability this turn, you can change that unit's name to Shikigami Master Ryogi. And finally, when her attack does not hit, you can Soul Blast 2 and choose up to the same number of cards with Stealth Fiend in their card names from your drop as the number of Axels and call them to Axel. Another set of Stealth Fiend support, but lacking the Stealth Fiend name herself, could be a hindrance when you find more copies of her that won't be able to get called. But apart from that, her effects are not bad. As always, it'll be the support cards that make it matter. Counterblast 1 to +2 to board, and on miss to Soul Blast 2 to plus board again is good value. But apart from Nudo and the Yuki package, not many good Stealth Fiends to choose from. Until now? Let's take a look at the new grade 2. Stealth Fiend Fukun. When placed on Rearguard Circle by an ability, Fukun gains 5k until end of turn. And when its attack does not hit, if our Vanguard is Ryogi, put this unit into Soul and all of our Rearguards named Ryogi gain 5k until end of turn. It plays nicely with Ryogi being able to cycle between Soul, Board, and Drop via its ability as well as Ryogi's ability. But it's a shame that when we're considering Murakumo, it only has half of its text considering it has to be on a Ryogi. Then our grade 1, Stealth Fiend Taizan. Similarly to Fukun, when placed on Rear Circle by an ability, it gains 5k until end of turn. And when any unit's attack does not hit, if your Vanguard is Ryogi, you can put it into Soul and check top 7 for a grade 3 card. I think Taizan would be really good if we weren't locked into being on Ryogi, so we could use it early game to convert it into a grade 3 ride if we didn't have one already. Taizan is probably the standout card as a method of being able to +2 hand. Let's take a look at the list first, run through my choices, and we'll talk about the winning image or lack thereof after. We start with 4 copies of Ryogi as our major grade 3 strategy, and because of its dependence on Stealth Fiend name, we're going to look to fill out some of our gaps with Stealth Fiend. In our grade 3 line, we also run 4 copies of Stealth Fiend and One-Eyed Nudo. Nudo really is one of the MVPs of Murakumo, and I think it shines more in this deck where his naming helps get his condition off moving himself into Soul at the end of turn, making him a good target to call off of Ryogi's miss skill. Soul Blast him, call him out right after, and then push him back to cycle more. To finish off the grade 3 line, we have the MVP of Murakumo, Ryouigi, but only at a singleton copy since we don't want to clog our deck with non-Stealth Fiend names as much as we can. In the later stages of the game, if we've been able to amass a good amount of Soul, slamming down Ryouigi in the front row to just dump our opponent 5k effectively makes all of our future attacks 5k larger, and this can help close out the game. Going into our grade 2 lineup, we've got a full set of Stealth Fiends. We run 4 copies of Jakotsu Girl for her early game pressure, forcing your opponent to either take a damage or give us some resources between fighting Ryouigi off the top or soul charging. We have 3 copies of both Flight Sickle and Silhouette. Flight Sickle is another good target to call off Ryogi skills to cycle himself out, and only 3 copies of Silhouette because it's good to mulligan for in their opener, but since her skill is only on place from hand, it makes good use of early counterblast, but as we get into the later stages of the game, once Ryogi is able to start calling from deck and drop, she tends to fall off very quickly. Usually we don't have to use her second effect to bottom deck someone else. It might be better to leave her on board for Nudo's end of turn resolution. And finally, to round out our grade 2s, we only run a pair of Fukun. We can cycle Fukun in and out of Soul via Ryogi when needed, and Fukun itself doesn't provide inherent advantage and scales better the more axles we have, so we're able to call more. Finally, we go into our grade 1 lineup. 4 copies of Taizan to start it off, able to get us important cards such as extra copies of Ryogis, Mutos, and Shiryuki, and unfortunately, we can only get those after we rolled into specifically Ryogi. We run 4 copies of Reigning Madame, also a Stealth Fiend and part of the Shiryuki package that can help convert a dead booster into a disruptive card. Sometimes consider leaving her on board for Muto's draw instead. And finally, 4 copies of this new promo, which according to my sources should be available now in English, Stealth Fiend Kugege. A very simple but very effective that makes it your best call, your best ride, a card to hard mulligan for. On place, on rear, or Vanguard, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and if all of the normal units are Stealth Fiend, call or add to hand a grade 2 or greater card. For it being a Stealth Fiend as well as it being able to tutor for grade 3s, namely Ryogi, it completely replaces Ataka. Whether called off of Ryogi's many effects, even Silhouette's effects, we can use Kugege to not only extend our attacks but also replenish hands. If Kugege also had an on-miss skill to go into Soul and do something, this card could make Stealth Fiends a deck, specifically with Ryogi a force to be reckoned with. With our main units out of the way, let's look into our trigger lineup. Of note that this is not a deck you should be playing front triggers with, for hitting a front trigger will only boost the 2 rear columns on the right and left column due to Ryogi wanting to call new units to Axel circles, so you might have to leave an unattacked column to boost for triggers to not be wasted. As such, we are running a 6 draw, 6 crit, 4 healed in lineup, with 2 of the vanilla draws being Stealth Fiend named. With the list out of the way, let's look at how the deck aims to win. Unsurprising to anyone, it's another multi-poke deck that looks to just overwhelm with multiple attacks and incidental buffs. After 2 to 3 Axel markers, what you would want to do is something like a full board of Taizan and a Shiryuki that you've played in the front to use their skill to dump the opponent by 5k. We attack with our Taizans to fuel our soul when they miss. Then after Ryogi attacks, you can Soul Blast the Mutos we've had from prior turns to call out more Stealth Fiends to attack with. Nothing has changed, it's still another Shiryuki debuff and multi-attack kind of deck. Now, what other options could we consider? Maybe you can see how important it is for us to farm Axel markers so Ryogi gets more value out of her miss effect. We can use another side grade 3 that's good for rewriting, such as the Hyaki reverse package or even Tamamo, which has some soft synergy with the Stealth Fiend names and triple drives on the turn it's placed. Yes, you turn off Taizan and Fukun, but those are minor players before we get into Ryogi anyways. In conclusion, Murakumo will always be carried by Shiryuki and held back by its naming convention. I think if card designers really wanted to make Murakumo a real clan again, they would give it a Jewel-Knight treatment and really double down on a single archetype. And it looks like it's slowly going to be the Stealth Fiend. In any case, that's it from me for this episode of Clan Collection Cores. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this and leave a comment down below because every little bit helps. This has been Toku from YellowCard Vanguard. Toku out.